Welcome to this lecture on mechanisms of change. My name is Pilvikki Absetz and I'm a professor of public health at the Tampere University in Finland. In this lecture, we will overview theories relevant to behavior change. We will also talk about techniques to change determinants identified in these theories, and then have some practical examples of utilization of theories. I want to remind you of the intervention effect on individual level slide that I showed in my last lecture that I hope that you also have been able to listen to. But also want to emphasize that when we think about this model, we can think about both the participants or the recipients of our interventions, but also the implementers of our interventions. So then we look at the health and implementation outcomes that are a result of some kind of behavior change. And today we want to learn a little bit more about the mechanisms of those changes with determinants based on theories and evidence, and also intervention strategies utilizing behavior change techniques that are based on theories and evidence as well. And recognizing that there is a need for systematic intervention planning based on behavior change science, and that this planning should entail also the interventions that are targeting the implementers. So because as we know, people don't just change their behaviors because of just information or training of skills, but often it's a more complex process. And this also entails implementers, not only the recipients of our interventions. But why do we need to understand change mechanisms behind evidence-based interventions, you might ask? Haven't the change mechanisms utilized in these EB already been identified in basic research and confirmed in efficacy trials? But when the EB involve human behavior, the answer is often we still don't know sufficiently. Most of the behavior change theories have been developed in Western countries, and they have been also tested in selected populations, originally or usually student populations. Of course, nowadays much more also with different types of general or patient populations as well. But still, there is very little research on their applicability to other contexts and populations in more low and middle income countries. So we need research on those. Also, as I already said, many of the same theories could be applied to implementer behaviors, but this still happens too rarely. What theories do, they help to identify the determinants. This proceed model we already looked at, and now we will dive into the determinants and behavior change theories that inform. We are not going to review all the 83 theories in this massive handbook ABC of behavior change theories by Susan Mickey and her colleagues, but we will look at selected theories from this slide that you have also already seen in my last lecture. Let's get back to the COM-B model that we already are familiar with. The necessary preconditions or sources for behavior, capability, opportunity, motivation. Much of the behavior change research has focused on motivation and capabilities, and much less on opportunities provided by the environment. Hopefully that is slowly changing, but the fact is that the more supportive the environment is for our behaviors, the less motivation we need, and the easier the behaviors have been made for us, the less capabilities we need. The behavior change wheel, where the capability, opportunity, and motivation are centered, in the hub also recognizes that, for example, motivation has automatic and reflective parts. And this is important to keep in mind when considering two types of change processes: the conscious deliberative process and the mainly subconscious and automatic process. As I said, research has mainly, and theory is also mainly focused on motivation and capabilities. And in this figure, you see some of the constructs on these or the sub constructs of these, and much less on the environment. But as I said, the environment can be much stronger in steering our habit formation and emergence of automatic routines. Let's look at the motivation first. Self-determination theory and quality of motivation. Self-determination theory is a generic motivational theory applicable to all kinds of behaviors, whether academic behaviors, work-related behaviors, or health behaviors. And this theory distinguishes different types of behaviors as non-self-determined or self-determined behaviors, and their underlying sources of motivation, from extrinsic to intrinsic. And then there are different types of regulation related to the sources of motivation. And the quality of motivation, either controlled or autonomous. And the importance of these is that research suggests that autonomous motivation is much more linked with long-term behavior change and sustainability, and then controlled motivation that is related to external rewards and punishments, whether externally delivered or internalized. Autonomous motivation is also fostered by fulfillment of basic psychological needs, which are relatedness, autonomy, and competence. And these can be seen in or characterized in ways that I've described here on this slide. And you can probably also recognize and identify from your own lives the importance of some of these when you think about your own motivation for different things that you do in your daily life, whether at work or with your hobbies or with your studies. Thinking about the capabilities, self-regulation control theory talks about those setting goals to reach a standard that you want to achieve, and this self-regulation circle that is depicted in the center of this figure is something that is a lot utilized in intervention research when trying to change people's behavior with different types of behavior change techniques, such as goal setting, self-monitoring, feedback, and action planning, those self-regulatory behavior change techniques. Health action process approach, the HAPA model is a hybrid model that brings together motivation, self-regulation in the three phases depicted here. If you recall our proceed model from Kerala Diabetes Prevention Program in India, you might remember that some of the things that we found out in the needs assessment phase were low self-efficacy, low outcome expectations and low risk perceptions that people had in terms of type 2 diabetes. So we were also thinking of HAPA model when designing that study. Habit formation through repetition in some specific context is something that is important to remember for the automatic processes. So, for example, context could can be a physical or a social situation or a series of actions that repeat in the same way all over again. And when in this type of a context, something triggers an action, and the action results in some type of a reward. Could be satiety, could be relaxation, could be joy, could be social acceptance, often something immaterial, or relief could be. Then if this happens again in the same context and again, then a habit is formed, and the reward then starts to play a less significant role. This can also be adapted to other types of behaviors. For example, implementer behavior. One could think about using blood pressure measurement as a context that could trigger actions such as lifestyle counseling, and then that could be happening again and again until it forms into a habit. Theoretical domains framework we also talked about in our last lecture, and here you can see that there are not very many different domains that really actually focus on the opportunities. Much more is about motivation and capabilities, and we will look at that framework again when we think about techniques to change behavior. Behavior change technique taxonomy is a much used taxonomy nowadays for thinking about different behavior change techniques. The benefits of these types of taxonomies are that they provide wider selections of techniques for intervention planners, and the techniques can be mapped with theoretical constructs or determinants. The taxonomies also provide a common terminology, and when this is used, then researchers can identify effective techniques, for example, with meta-analysis. So we will know much better what works in terms of interventions. Here is an example of how to address theoretical domains framework with behavior change techniques. So, for example, think about beliefs about capabilities, and here is the list from TDF about what constructs this domain could entail. Then we can select the self-belief related techniques, for example, verbal persuasion, focus on past successes, and some others there. Or if we think about environmental context and resources, here are the constructs within this domain. We can think about antecedents, so restructuring the physical or the social environment, for example. Choice architecture is another cluster of strategies that can be used, and that is being used. If you think about supermarkets, they are using choice architecture strategies. That's how the microenvironment is organized to support people in making choices. Of course, in research, we want people to make healthy choices or choices that promote implementation of an intervention in a workplace, for example. But supermarkets often use choice architecture to improve sales of different products, and often those are unhealthy products. But what are the choice architecture strategies that can be used? For example, in this typology, TIPME, the strategies are related to size, availability, position, presentation, information, and functionality. So different ways of thinking about, for example, the size is one very important factor. The bigger the size, the more people consume. Position also, the easier to take, the more people take. Functionality, for example, ease of using food, which is already sliced and or produced, increases use. Effect depends on the type of the nudges. The more behaviorally oriented are much more effective than the cognitively oriented. For example, descriptive labeling needs a little bit of thinking, and from the participant, while size enhancements usually work quite automatically. I also wanted to bring a couple of policy system or environmental level mechanisms of change and frameworks or theories on how to utilize these. The advocacy coalition framework, diffusion of innovations, and the community organizing are appear in the literature quite often. And suggest different pathways to policy change or cycles of learning and action in community organizing or adoption of innovations in the diffusion of innovation theory or model. Often these are used for evaluating and analyzing, and not so often as intervention strategies or guides. Some practical examples of using theories, some of them from our own research. We were looking at self-determination theory in our study Smart 2D in Uganda, South Africa, and Sweden, because we wanted to know if we could utilize that as part of our intervention. And our findings for exercise partly supported the assumptions of the theory. This is also a paper from that project about the development and contextualization of the strategies that we were using. We also used the HAPA model in the goal lifestyle implementation trial, and there we had specific behavior change techniques to address self-efficacy, outcome expectancies, and risk perception, and also in the planning and action phase, we utilized goal setting, self-monitoring of behavior and outcomes, as well as action planning, problem solving, social support, feedback on behavior and outcomes in this peer support program. In the Kerala Diabetes Prevention Program, we also utilized the HAPA model, but we emphasized a lot the self-regulation part also very strongly in this study. The goal trial findings supported HAPA for exercise, showing that self-efficacy change and planning change influenced exercise change, and so social support also played a role in those processes. We also got support for dietary behaviors and clinical outcomes in a study in Australia with the same model. Here is an example of choice architecture strategies that we utilized in Stop Diabetes at Work, which was a study conducted in Finland, where we worked with different work sites and had a large number of different strategies that they could implement. And you can see the target type of the strategies from the TIPME typology that I showed previously. We also saw that even though people paid attention to, for example, visibility enhancements or prompts that we used in workplace cafeteria, those couldn't override motivation and routines when it came to selection of foods in the cafeteria. Okay, coming to the conclusion, my key messages today are that capabilities, opportunities, and motivation are necessary preconditions of behavior, but we also need other theories to specify how these operate. Many of the same theories could be applied to implementer behaviors. So use imagination there and think about how to apply. Also, that we need much more research to develop, apply, and test theories in low and middle income settings. Thank you for being with me during this lecture.